Okay guys, part 4, suspension upgrades, marketing versus reality. So a big part of any GVM is suspension. So a lot of suspension or GVM upgrades were based on heavier springs and shocks so that you can able to control the vehicle with the extra load required. So springs and shocks will take you so far. What we used to see majority of is you'd do spring and shock upgrade, get a GVM. If you want to carry more load, they started to add extra axles. So you get into the 6x6 or the 6x4 space where you are adding axles, adding brakes because you've got an extra axle that brakes. However, now what we're seeing is not only are they doing suspension, we're doing diff upgrades, we're doing wheel upgrades, we're doing brake upgrades, chassis extensions, all those sorts of things to be able to handle to carry more load. So, and as we discussed earlier, we could see how all of those things are implicated as you get heavier and heavier. Now, one of the big things is when you're talking about a suspension upgrade, if you don't get the right upgrade for what you need, then you're not going to be happy with it. And everybody has a different line in the sand of their expectation of a GVM. You know, if you want it to be comfortable and to carry load, usually you've got to start spending more money on those components, whether it be higher quality shocks, different springs, etc. So it all comes back to dollars and cents. Now, the other side of it is a lot of people don't realize the heavier the GVM that you often go, you compromise ride quality. So if you say to someone, and let's use a 79 as an example, oh, I want a 4.2 ton Leaf GVM on a Leaf spring. Well, you're not going to need to carry some constant load. You know, usually 400 to 600 kilos over and above the factory GVM. They're not designed to be driven around empty because they top all the suspension out, the shackle angle's incorrect. So if you want to go down that space, a Leaf GVM is a good option, providing you work within the parameters of what it's designed to do. If you want to drive something that's more comfortable and has the load carrying capacity, sometimes you've got to opt to something with a coil in the rear because it functions differently. So the other side of it is if you're going to run a Leaf spring and then you're going to try and go, well, I'm going to carry another 300 or 400 kilos, we're just going to bang some airbags in, then you start to talk about having chassis issues, bending chassis, all those sorts of things, because airbags are often designed as load assist, not load carry. So going too light in your Leaf and supplementing it with an airbag is fraught with issues. You can do it to a point, but when you go over that point and you hit something hard like a washout or, you know, bull dust holes, etc., what we see out in outback Australia, they do damage. So essentially doing things to suit your application, but, you know, you've got to understand what the criteria of your suspension is designed to do. So, you know, having a smaller GVM upgrade might be more suitable for your application. You know, people try to carry too much gear. The more weight that you carry off-road, the more prone you're going to be to sustain damage if you hit something hard. So, you know, protection things on coils, for example, in say a 200 series or something like that, you can run an internal airbag. You know, they're load assist, help to stabilize the load, but they're not there to take all the weight. It's the wrong, you know, it stops your suspension from working. You know, things like internal bump zones in your shocks and things like that too. If you do hit something hard, you've got some sort of protection to the vehicle so that you don't break something. So that's probably the main thing with suspension. The other one is people don't understand is if you've got a shock and someone says, hey, look, I can do a GVM upgrade and this is my shock absorber, and you go and say, well, I want to do 4.2 or 4.5 ton, and they go, oh, you can still use that same shock. Well, was that shock designed to do 3.9 or 4.5 ton? The shock has to be valved to suit the application. So whilst you might go heavier in your spring rate, then you need to start revalving and setting your shocks up properly. So a lot of customers will come in and go, oh, but I've got a GVM upgrade of 3.9 and I've got this shock. Why can't I go to 4.2 with that shock? And it's because that shock wasn't designed for that outcome. So that's always something to keep in mind. The other one is if you go to a GVM and you need to go bigger, can the company providing it go bigger in the GVM later? Can I add to that GVM? What you've got to remember is all the GVMs that are set out by second stage manufacturers, they're set. So you can't chop and change and go, well, I don't like their brand of shock. I'm going to go and grab XYZ shock or XYZ coil and put it in, because as soon as you remove the part that's been certified for that GVM, your engineering is void, your GVM is void, and potentially you're running around illegally. So if you have an accident, there could be implications with that. So suspension though, definitely an important one. Choice, obviously budget, make sure it fits your budget, whichever way you go, and make sure you understand whether you need to carry constant load, how much constant load, what your ride quality potential is going to be like. So everybody has a different line in the sand as to what they're looking for. All right, well, stay with us for our next one coming through, and we'll do part 5.